For our final presentation this morning, let's welcome our friends from the state of Washington, Team Yakima.
Buenos dias. Good morning. As we get started today, the Yakima team would like to acknowledge that we're coming to you from the traditional lands of our first people of our valley, the 14 confederated tribes and bands of the Yakima Nation. And we honor with gratitude the land itself and the Yakima tribe. Thank you for having me this morning. My name is Claudia Figueroa Dominguez, and I'm the Migrant Family Engagement and Student Leadership Coordinator. I have been an advocate for low-income, first-generation, minority students and families for over 10 years, with the goal to build connection, trust, and comunidad. I would also like to introduce my team. As you review your booklet, you might notice that the Yakima team is a little bit different in the sense that we don't all come from the same school district. Between the 5 of us, we're representing 2 different school districts that are very different. And also, 2 of us are coming with a state agency with Title I Part C funding that works directly with migrant families. These are families that have migrate from school district to school district boundaries, and they work in agricultural work. At this time, as you can imagine, having this makeup was a little challenging at times, like trying to find times to meet, and do we do it over Zoom? Do we do it all in person, or what have you? But because of the unique makeup of our team, we're able to leverage the opportunity and have a regional approach to the work that we're doing. Would you agree with the statement that the parent, guardian, and family is the first and most important teachers of the children's family or lives? It takes a village to raise a child, right? Yeah, these are common quotes that we hear in the education world all the time. I live by these quotes almost as close as my morning coffee, but it's what gets me, yes, cheers, it's what gets me to work every day. But what if families don't realize that this is the important role that they have? Or what if the school administration, teachers, they don't believe in these families? As we embark on this journey to discover what family engagement looks like in our schools and our community, we learned that families are often feeling like they're not part of the team. Allow me to paint a picture of our beautiful Cascade, Pacific Northwest. The Cascade Range, as we know, as the Yakima Valley today, serves as an agricultural, hunting, fishing lands for a Yakima Indian tribe. Before the early settlers came in 1805, the Lewis and Clark expedition. Since its settlement, Yakima has become a hub for migratory families, first attracting Chinese and Japanese families to railroad work, and then experiencing a large influx of Latino immigrants following the Bracero program, which allowed Mexican nationals to come and do agricultural work, which is especially fruitful in our Yakima Valley. We're known for our grapes, our hops, apples, mint, cattle, and diverse fishing. Our community has a rich mixture of people from many cultural and ethnic backgrounds. At its core, the valley has strong farm-to-table pride, freshly hand-picked fruits and vegetables, the aroma of freshly harvested hops, and the buzzing of bees pollinating our trees and grape vineyards. Unfortunately, the success of our valley has not come at a low cost. In fact, the very foundation of the town of Yakima started when majority of ancestral lands were surrendered to white prospectors, miners, and soldiers in the Treaty of 1855. Our Native families today still suffer from generational trauma that was inflicted upon their great-grandparents being forced to attend boarding schools, forced to assimilate to European ideologies. 50 years later, we have a booming railroad community, not only to serve as transportation for the families, but also means to transport fruit and produce to the east and middle markets. Alongside that, underground opium tunnels and dens are also a thriving opium in our valley. Our community continues devastating fight against poverty, drugs, and trafficking to this day. Today, Yakima County's Hispanic and Latino population is 50.2%, making up the largest minority group in our area. Local residents of Mexican descent continue to be targets of racial slurs and stereotypes. A director from our local early learning program, Cecilia Gonzalez, shared with us that children as early as preschool age are sharing their traumas. They are scared of what they're hearing on news and what they hear their parents talking about. Our families have shared that after the Trump administration imposed the public charge rule that would disqualify Mexican citizens from the opportunity to seek lawful residency, families are afraid to use resources that are available to them. Resources such as early learning centers, migrant programs, nutritional programs. These are all programs that are available and there to help our underserved families. But sometimes they don't take advantage of them because they're afraid of this public charge. Our county of almost 260,000 residents has grown 44.4% since 1984, when the Bracero program was in full swing. Familias have reached the American dream, opening up their own mercados, panaderías, carnicerías, ranchitos, restaurants. These are markets, bakeries, butcher shops, and restaurants. My own dad has his own honeybee farm. But if you were to ask him what his greatest accomplishment is, he would say having his oldest 3 children obtain their bachelor's degree and one of them obtaining their master's. I asked my mom one day if she ever imagined having children obtain higher education. Was this always a goal for her? She answered, Claudia, when you were little, we were just trying to survive. But we made the sacrifice to leave our home country, leave our parents, our family, our friends behind, all for a better life. We had no future there. My parents, like many families in our valley, have left their home countries and immigrated to the United States of America in pursuit of the American dream. I was only 3 years old, and my brother was 3 months old, when my parents made the dangerous journey across the Rio Grande and settled in Yakima, Washington. We lived in poverty, homeless at times, living in a 1-bedroom place or even in a cold, wet garage. I remember my mom screaming at hissing rats, shooing them away from the mattress on the floor with a broom. I remember my mom covering me and my brothers on the floor, tears falling on my forehead as she used her body to shield us from gunfire from neighboring gang members. I remember waking up early. The sun wasn't even out yet, just the smell of fruit orchards and the crisp feel of the morning dew. My very first job at the age of 6 was to look after my younger siblings in a fruit bin as my parents climbed up their ladders, filled up their fruit baskets with fruit, climbed back down to fill up a fruit bin. And I remember thinking, wow, how long is it going to take to fill up that bin? I also remember my first day of kindergarten. The teacher and other kids were trying to call me. I remember her rubbing my back. But I remember being so scared because I didn't understand what they were saying to me. I also remembered that by 3rd grade, I had quickly taken on the role of parent-teacher conference translator. I remember my teacher telling me to tell my mom that I hadn't been turning in my homework. And then my mom telling me to, tell him, I know you did your homework because I saw you do it. And then it just so happened that the recycling bin was right next to me, and my homework happened to be sitting right on the top. My teacher had been throwing away my homework without giving credit. I also want to acknowledge that there were other teachers that saw me. They pushed me to find my potential, and they celebrated my educational accomplishments. I remember standing up on a stage very similar to this, receiving my high school diploma at top 10% of my class. I had come a long way from my first experience in kindergarten, but I still had an upward journey to obtain my bachelor's degree. My parents had not imagined that their children would be so successful because all they were doing was surviving day by day, experiencing so many barriers that our families are still experiencing now. I'm only a success story because of the resources and programs that my parents were able to access since I was young. My parents enrolled my brothers and I in the Migrant Seasonal Head Start program to support school readiness for low-income agricultural working families. Here, they got a little taste of what family engagement was. They learned that my education was a shared responsibility between them and the school. They learned about goal setting and resources that they could tap into without jeopardizing their safety. They later enrolled us in the Migrant Education program that supported our family's well-being and engaged them even more in my education. My mom is currently the Migrant Parent Advisory Council president at her local school district, and she continues to advocate for migrant families. During our landscape assessment, we analyzed data from the Washington Kindergarten Inventory of Developing Skills, also known as WAKIDS, that assesses school readiness. In our more assimilated parts of our region, just 50% of Hispanic students are kindergarten ready in all 6 areas of development and learning. In our more disadvantaged areas, only 9% of our Hispanic students are entering kinder ready. We also conducted 35 empathy interviews with educators, staff, students, administrators, and family members. We asked them their views on what they think the parents' role is in their education, what schools are doing to make them feel welcomed, and what are some of the challenges that they're experiencing. What we heard was that there's not equal representation of Latino teachers in our classrooms or in the school administration. One parent shared with us that he felt like there was no opportunity to be a leader in his school. Parents felt that teachers had low expectation of their minority students, believing in myths such as parents do not care about their child's education. Even when we invite them, they don't engage. And then there are cultural barriers that we learned about too. Like, I was raised to not ask for help. Or my job as a parent is to make sure that my child is well behaved. Your job is to teach them math and reading. We learned that families and students have low sense of belonging in their schools. There was a disconnect between families, what families thought family engagement is what teachers thought family engagement is. With this information, we established 3 goals for our migrant families in efforts to increase family engagement across our South Central region of Washington State. As our guest today, we have Stacy Drake, the West Valley School District Assistant Superintendent for Teaching and Learning. Cynthia Juarez, our Educational Service District 105's Executive Director of Early Learning and Migrant Education. And Kirsten Fitterer, Yakima School District's Chief Communications Officer, joining us today. Our first goal is to develop a leadership skills for our parents, empower them to use their voice to advocate for themselves and their children, encourage them to take roles in their parent advisory councils in schools, and connect them to services that are available to them. For my parents, they learned this aspect of family engagement from their employer, the Olsons, beekeepers by trade, but also well-established members in their community. They guided my parents in learning about the education system and giving them the little tips and tricks. For example, make sure your kids are well-rounded students. It's not just about education. It's about making relationships. It's about putting them in leadership roles, having them enrolled in extracurricular activities like sports. But they also told them, but also you have to be involved. Don't miss their celebrations. Don't miss their parent-teacher conferences. And if the school has extra help for your students, take it. Not all parents have Olsons to share their wealth of knowledge, do they? So we could be that wealth of knowledge. We're inviting parents to a 4-part parent leadership conference during the 2022-2023 school year, concluding with a celebration in collaboration with a youth leadership conference. Parent leaders from 5 districts in our region have attended 3 conferences conducted in their language, and we also provided childcare and, of course, the food, because that's what helps us bring us here, right? But when they attended these presentations, they were left inspired. My favorite outcome from these conferences were seeing these parents come up to the presenters at the end and taking their business card and saying, I am going to invite you to my school so that the rest of the parents at my school can get this important information. And they have followed through. Since then, the parents have provided mental health nights and school readiness nights at their schools. Collectively, our ask is to allow the Yakima team to prioritize facilitating these regional parent leadership conferences. Secondly, we will work with the Flamboyant team to develop a Family Engagement 101 professional development for staff and teachers and admin, followed by a series of events provided for a space for discussion and connection with people that do family engagement work in our region. School districts can then incorporate small but significant changes to boost their family engagement efforts in their schools. Our ask of Cynthia is to champion the integration of Family Engagement 101 at the state level and Stacy at the superintendent level. Lastly, we would like to develop a communications campaign for a universal understanding of real family engagement and how important this work is. The campaign would be geared towards parents and families, staff in our community. As mentioned earlier, the family's the child's first and most important teacher. This campaign will educate and provide resources and create a shared vision of family engagement. Our ask of Kirsten is to support the Yakima team in developing an educational campaign to increase family engagement in our region. These stolen lands of the Yakima Valley are so fruitful today because of the blood and tears our migratory and agricultural families shed every day as they partake in back-breaking work that no one else chooses to do. They're some of the most vulnerable and marginalized community members, having to juggle many barriers at a time. We ask that you help our schools stop and listen to their voices. That our school staff understand their family needs and support them in strengthening their leadership skills. Our migrant families already have been breaking barriers. They already have the grit and the heart to lead their children into a better future. Our ask is that you have the school districts in their region that have Title I Part C migrant education funding allocate funding resources to deliver future regional leadership conferences, expanding from 5 districts to all 16. Ensure that our staff at districts participate in Family Engagement 101 to have a universal understanding of family engagement, one in which our families will be welcomed and celebrated. And finally, developing an educational campaign to have common understanding of family engagement. I am honored to share my story today with you all as an example of what students can achieve when they're supported by their teachers and have their parents in their corner owning that title of first and most important teacher. Let's lead this village together.